week of October 21st of 2024. Some big changes this week, some big changes. Well, the sun goes into Scorpio. That happens on Tuesday, and we sort of get, we're already in that kind of All Souls Day Halloween vibe, obviously, and we're just going to get all the more so now that the sun is in Scorpio. So that is a big transition. And we're starting to feel like we're heading towards the end of the year, right? This is like the closing up, particularly if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, like you probably are. We're coming into the end of the year. We're certainly deep into the second half of the astrological year. It feels like a time of kind of review, going inwards, and so on. So that's the change that is happening. But before the sun gets into Scorpio, the sun will square Pluto. At the very, very end of Libra, 29 degrees of Libra, the sun will square Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And that's the last time that the sun and Pluto will tangle in Capricorn, well, with Pluto in Capricorn for, well, couple of hundred years. This is the last time the sun will be making a major aspect to Pluto. Next month, the sun will make a nice sextile to Pluto. The sun will enter Sagittarius and will make a nice sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. But, we're going to talk about that down the road. Right now, we're focusing on this last square. And it's a tough one. At the very end of Libra, the sun is not really at its strongest. The sun would like to be in a fire sign, but the sun doesn't want that kind of rules and negotiations that Libra requires. The sun is, it's royalty, the king, the queen, the emperor, perhaps, doesn't really want to be dealing with the more legislative end of things as it would have in Libra. So the sun isn't really happy about it. And then Pluto is at the very, very end of Capricorn. So you can kind of look at this as being like that royal principle, like, what we're all about, like this. And the sun, I make my little analogies, but the sun is vitality and strength and energy. It's the central principle, right? It is the center of the solar system. And here it's at a little bit of a disadvantage. And Pluto in Capricorn, this is the financiers, the bankers, the power brokers. And this is really just about the last hurrah for Pluto in Capricorn, because the times are going to shift into that Aquarian vibe. I have a great video if you go to my channel and you just look for the video on Pluto and Aquarius, or you can hold off on that for a little bit. Maybe we'll do a new one. You can look for it when Pluto does go into Aquarius sometime around November 19th. Depends how much time you have. Speaking of time, maybe I should get to the point. So we have this kind of, the solar principle, not very strong, and scraping up against Pluto. It is, if you want to put a new wing on the castle, you've got to get somebody to finance it. You're going to have to get somebody to go either get some more money, you have to get the exchequer to go collect some more taxes, or you got to take a loan. You watched Game of Thrones, right? So it's not my thing, but you probably saw it. This whole who's got the power kind of thing. And we should see some, well, no, we should see, I'm sure we will see some effects of this on the collective level, particularly in the US as we get close to election day. You can kind of see this sort of tension that is there that has been quite strong all along is going to hit a little bit of a peak as the sun squares Pluto early in the week. I would think that this is the kind of thing we'd be looking for. It's exact on Tuesday. But I would think we would see this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We'll see. We'll have to see. Now, of course, the sun squares Pluto, and it's a little bit of a tension, a little bit of that solar principle being a little bit weak as it squares Pluto. And then the very next thing that happens just hours later is that the sun goes into Pluto's sign of Aquarius. You know, now, Scorpio, not Aquarius, Scorpio. Sun goes into Pluto's sign of Scorpio. Now, the sun goes into Scorpio every year and does pretty well there. And it's a nice sign. It's a good time of year and all of that. But again, that solar principle, that what we're all about type of thing, is put back a little bit. I think that the square to Pluto manifests on a more direct level. Like, who has the power? Power struggles. You see it on the collective level, you'll see it on the personal level as well. Who has the power? The sun goes into Scorpio. We start to recognize that there are bigger processes at work, that the cycle of the year moves on, and even the sun winds up, from our perspective, even the sun winds up a little bit below below the horizon. The sun goes down a little bit and then comes back up again later in the springtime. And so there are big processes underway, and we have to recognize that. The Scorpio season helps us to see that. But that square to Pluto may make us a little bit less thrilled about it than usual. If you like things to be sunny and up there and out there, this is gonna be a little bit bump in the road over here for you. It's not really that kind of energy. It's much more the darker energies, but the darker energies as part of the cycle. All right, well, what else is going on? Mercury at the beginning of the week is going to be trine to Saturn. And so again, Mercury is in Scorpio, trine to Saturn, able to able to kind of eke out a little bit of an emotional message, and communicate some things that are important to get across on an emotional level. Um, in personal stuff, with friends and family and lovers and so on, probably pretty good. If you're looking to do something at work, I think that somehow the emotional tinge to the conversation may work for you, and it may work against you. If you're trying to negotiate something, if you're trying to, if you're asking for time off, basically it's a good, you're trying to get your like holiday vacation time in. Basically, it's a good time. Although with the sun square Pluto, could go either way. And I think also too, with Mercury and Saturn both in signs, watery emotional signs, that they're not crazy about. It could be a little tough if you're trying to come across with some cut and dry kind of information. If you're doing some research, on the other hand, this is a very, very good energy. If you need to communicate research that you've done, if you've gone on some sort of fact-finding mission and you got to let other people know what you found, this is a really good time. So I think the very beginning of the week is a very good time to get across some of that kind of information. Hey, the pension fund is missing some money, stuff like that. Towards the end of the week, Mars is getting to the end of Cancer. Mars is getting out there at the very end of the sign of Cancer, which again, that emotional tinge to the energy that Mars really doesn't like. Mars really doesn't like the sign of Cancer. A very protective vibe, very, very protective vibe with Mars at the end of Cancer. And because of his impending retrograde, we'll talk about that in the near future, but because of his impending retrograde, Mars is going to leave Cancer for Leo, then come back into Cancer and leave for Leo again after his retrograde. So Mars is going to be hanging out towards the end of Cancer for a long period of time. What's wrong with Mars in Cancer? Mars just wants to go and do things. And in Cancer, there's a sort of conservative vibe that is sort of holding back. Mars in Cancer is great for advocating for the family, for the clan, not so much for the individual. A little bit of hope here, as Mars will have nice, easy aspects, I should say, to Uranus in Taurus, and also to Neptune in Pisces. And that kind of suggests that if you're feeling the little of that constraint of Mars in Cancer, that sense of how do I get things moving, things might ease up a little bit. So what does that mean in practical terms? It's an easier energy to get out and do things. It's an easier energy for moving anything that needs to be moved. It should probably be kind of, it's the weekend we're looking at over here. Should be kind of fun. But Mars sort of likes to be productive when he can. When it's possible, Mars likes to be productive. So it suggests that you can get some stuff moving. Then some of the constraints, I'm like, I'd like to do this, but I gotta do that. This is more the Mars in Cancer dilemma that we might have been facing for the last few weeks, that I want to do this, but I gotta do that, or I want to do this and they all want to do that. Or looks like you could get a little bit of movement and a little bit of freedom. Mars is going to be sextile to Uranus after all. And so there should be a little bit of potential for freedom. Also, with Mars in a nice trine relationship to Neptune, that's kind of nice for that's a nice, let's call it a fantasy sort of energy that is likely to prevail on the weekend. And, as we're getting near to Halloween and so on, that sort of thing goes over really, really well. Venus is in Sagittarius. So when it comes to socializing, we got some pretty good stuff going on. So to recap, Sun square Pluto at the beginning of the week, bit of a power struggle kind of thing, but otherwise pretty good. Sun goes into Scorpio. We recognize that we're in the midst of a transitional period. We have a lot of other aspects that are just generally supportive of the kind of changes that we'd be doing. And because Venus is in Sagittarius and Mars is making nice aspects, we have certainly the potential to have some fun. And that's okay.